Hey everyone, what's going on? Mark here from TST Industries, and today I am not in the garage, I am not at the shop. We are here on scene at DeLand Motorsports and Outdoors in DeLand, Florida, where we have taken delivery of our all-new 2024 Suzuki GSX-8R. Now, if you've been watching our channel or have been following our journey, you do know that last year we picked up the 2023 Suzuki GSX-8S, and this is the new sibling to that model. Now, at its core, it is the same bike, same motor, same frame. However, Suzuki did introduce some subtle changes, and they have homologated it for racing, so we are expecting to see huge developments with this platform. We are very excited, and as you can see in front of me, we have already taken it apart and installed a ton of parts. But outside of the motor and the frame, and of course the wheels, this bike does have some subtle changes. As I mentioned, we do have clip-ons versus the handlebars that you saw on the 8S. The biggest and most noticeable change are the fairings and windscreen, which should help with aerodynamics and riding ability. And lastly, the suspension has gone, some slight changes have been made to that. So we are very excited. After we leave here, we will be taking this on the road for a true first ride review. And behind me, I do want to show you, we do have one in stock form. This bike does come in 3 options. All of the brochure items, the horsepower readings, the seat height, fuel capacity, all that stuff is the same as the 8S, but the color options are different for 2024. We have this blue and black model with gray wheels. It is beautiful. In front of us, this is our model. We have this silver model with red, and lastly, they offer a yellow version. So if you're in the Central Florida area, you want to check out this Suzuki GSX-8R or any new Suzuki model, be sure to stop by DeLand Motorsports and Outdoors. They have a huge inventory in this beautiful showroom. KTM, Benelli, Suzuki's of course, they have Yamaha Power Sports and more. So be sure to come visit. The guys and gals here are phenomenal. They've taken care of us every step of the way, and we're honored to be here, and they're allowing us to film. But other than that, let's go ahead and get to the nitty gritty, take this thing out on the road, and begin our first ride review. Here we are with the all-new 2024 Suzuki GSX-8R. We've picked up this bike. This is really my first time riding it. We have already taken it to the shop. We tore it apart, installed a bunch of our parts, had to verify product fitment so that we can ensure what we're selling does fit this bike. We did know that the platform was about the same from the 8S, but being that it is a new bike, we do have to still do our due diligence and verify in-house. So obviously, as you can hear, and as you saw in our intro, we do have an exhaust installed. We have a fender eliminator, our tail light, some front signals, levers, our water pump cover, our rear set risers, levers, bar ends, spools, the whole works. But a lot of that stuff doesn't really alter the rideability or the ride factor of this bike, right? Rear set risers, yes, you can argue that those change the ergonomics, but we have them in the stock position, so I digress. Everything else is the same. We weren't able to swap out the clip-ons. We weren't able to swap out the clip-ons. Windscreen is the same, the seat is the same, everything else is the same. And I can tell you right off the bat that the bike does feel the same. I was, in a weird way, hoping that we would be on a different bike, that the ride would feel different, the response would feel different. But I've got to be completely honest and tell you right off the bat that no, it feels exactly the same, even with the clip-ons, as opposed to the handlebars found on the 8S. Your riding position doesn't change. Your seat height is the same, 31.5 inches. Your footrests are in the same spot. Your ground clearance is the same. So what is different? Well, the biggest thing, and I can definitely tell today, is the wind reduction in your aerodynamics. When I was on the 8S, on a windy day like today, I would be battling the wind quite a bit. Not only the wind in a sense of moving, but with it pushing me side to side. Now with this 8R,
We have improved aerodynamics with the fairings. We have a windscreen. So it really does provide a much more aerodynamic and rider-friendly ride, which I am all for. I used to own an MT-07. If you've watched any of our first ride reviews, you know that I'm a former MT-07 owner. I loved that bike. At the time, I thought it was one of the most well-rounded bikes on the market. And it held that title for quite some time. But if you watched our first ride review of the 8S, which can be found in the link below, you will note that as soon as I got on the 8S, I kicked the MT-07 to the curb and I said this was the king of parallel twins under 1,000 cc's, and the 8R is no different. Now, the R7 to the MT-07 was a very different ride. You were moving from the MT-07 to the R7. The R7 had inverted forks, a completely different riding position, completely different look. The ergonomics, I mean, you were really riding a scalpel, as I described it. It was very sharp and very super sport oriented. But that is not the case with this 8R. It is sport bike driven and oriented, but again, the ergonomics don't have you pitched super far forward. I don't feel like I'm breaking my back leaning forward to the controls, and it really does provide a very comfortable feeling while still having the ability to turn in and ride like a sport bike as opposed to a naked bike. Now, all the bells and whistles on this bike, the riding modes, the quick shifter, the auto blipper, all that stuff I've already discussed. This is a first ride review of this bike. However, it's a weird predicament that we're in because we've already done a first ride review on this bike without fairings. So in this video, I really do just want to compare it to the 8S in a sense, while also being respective to the other parallel twin sport bike style motorcycles out there. Yes, I'm looking at you R7 owners. I'm looking at you Aprilia RS660 owners. And don't worry, I haven't forgotten you Ninja 650 owners. Now again, as I mentioned with the 8S, I will reiterate it with this one, although the price is different. I do still believe that this is the best value parallel twin motorcycle on the market, even in the sport bike style world. I think that with the improved aerodynamics and the subtle features like these odd clip-ons that aren't really clip-ons, but they are, you can't adjust the angle or the height or anything on them yet, but they are clip-ons. The dash has been moved back a few inches, which is a nice touch. It seems a little bit lower and a little pushed back. I do like that. And the biggest thing that I've noticed is the mirrors. Now, on the 8S, the mirrors were on the handlebars, or are on the handlebars, I should say. On this bike, they are on the front of the fairing. What does that mean for you as a rider? Well, you have a wider viewing angle. That's really all it is. But that means less fidgeting with the mirrors to ensure that you could see behind you. You're getting a broader viewing angle without having to adjust them and fighting while you're riding. They are mounted to the front upper, I believe, which is a nice touch. Looking at the bike from the cockpit, essentially, you can see a little slot over here to the left. Looks like a spot for a USB charger, the same as they featured on the 8S. However, on the 8S, it was mounted to the headlight. Speaking of the headlight, we are working with the same made headlight on the 8R from the 8S. However, it is a little bit lower in height, And you do not have those accent running lights on the side. Now, if you look at the front of this bike, however, it resembles a little bit like the Gixxer 1000. You have a singular headlight module up on the front in the center, similar to every other sport bike that Suzuki has put out. But what is different from the Gixxer 1000 and even the 8S is that we no longer have those accent running lights on the side. So it is a little bit different. I do wish that the front scoops were functional. However, we have a TST Works intake system for the 8S and the 8R. And after working with that system and taking the bike apart and following our engineer team during their R&D process, I can see why it is very hard, some would say virtually impossible, to make the intake style ducts on the front actually functional. Why is that? Well, the intake for this bike is right underneath the rider seat, meaning if you are trying to produce a ram air effect, you must make sure that you have the ability to channel that air all the way from the front underneath all these fairings and the gas tank, and then loop it back around to the rear of the gas tank to produce that ram air effect. I don't think it's possible. I don't think it's worth it. But I'm sure some garage engineer out there will make it happen. So I'm excited to see just what everyone comes up with on this model. Now, the 8S has been out for almost a year, and we've done a ton of research and development on it. We've produced a ton of products. We have more in the pipeline. One of the biggest ones is our tail light. Obviously, everyone wants to know what's going on with that. Well, we were working on it, and then we got word that Suzuki was planning on releasing an 8R, which was a fairing version of the 8S. And while we wanted to be quick to the market and release a tail light, we also wanted to future-proof ourselves, which is why it took a little bit of time. And we are planning and hoping that we can release the tail light this year in 2024. But the delay was caused by the introduction of this bike. We wanted to ensure that the light we were creating was going to fit the 8R, and lo and behold, it's actually on this bike that I'm riding right now. So for all you viewers out there, yes, we do have one production unit. If you're interested in it, it's $7,500, and we will sell it to you direct. No warranty, no returns. But again, going back to the whole research and development process, well, we have been working on this platform. We do have hopes of racing this bike, and now that it is homologated for racing, we do have very serious plans of racing this bike once bodywork is available and a few other odds and ends. But looking at this bike at its core, Suzuki is boasting that it has the same horsepower reading as the 8S, which is roughly 82 horsepower at the crank. What we saw, I believe, on our 8S testing was about 75 horsepower, I believe, on a stock exhaust, stock intake setup, or 77 horsepower. You can watch our videos and check out our product pages for exact numbers. But on this bike, all that to say, we did see a 2 horsepower increase from the 8S. Now, there are a few things that can be contributing to that. We are in cooler weather. Does that make a difference? Well, in Florida, with the humidity and everything, potentially, yes. It's also important to note that these bikes were manufactured at different times. So tolerances might be a little bit tighter or a little bit looser one way or the other. Our break-in process for this bike was different from the 8S. The 8S, it was from the dealership floor to our studio floor where I rode, and then we took it to the dyno. Well, on this one, we took it from the dealership straight to the dyno. It did not come to TST at all, and then it came to TST after. So the way the motor was assembled, the way we have broken it in, the difference in temperature. There's a lot of factors that go into it. Do I think that there really is a true 2 horsepower difference from the 8S to the 8R widespread? No. However, we are working with our good friends over at Two Wheel Dyno Works. We're in constant communication with them. I want to give a huge shout out to Nate Phipps and the guys over there. They do excellent work. But we are sharing some insider secrets when it comes to this platform. Oh, that's nice. That is very nice. So I am very curious, once they get their hands on an 8R, we'll really be able to tell if there really is a true difference widespread across the board. I don't think that's the case, but I do believe that there will be a percentage difference from model to model that will be fairly consistent. So for example, if this bike is reading 79 horsepower and the 8S was reading 77, after we make modifications, the percentage change from the 8S to the 8R with the same modifications should be relatively the same, if not exactly the same. So only time will tell. We have a lot of hopes and plans for this platform. Shout out to Suzuki for providing us something that was well built, well designed. I'm a believer in this platform and in this bike, and I'm excited to see where the world takes it and how the world accepts it. Now comparing it to the R7, obviously big discrepancy in the horsepower difference. In order of the big ones, which is Kawasaki, Suzuki, Yamaha, and Aprilia for parallel twin sport bikes. At the bottom of the barrel is Kawasaki. Next up the rung is the Yamaha R7, followed by the 8S, and then the Aprilia RS660. However, do take into account the cost of those bikes, the reliability and availability of those bikes, and the parts that they may need. There's a lot of factors to weigh in. Don't just look at horsepower readings as the end-all be-all. There's a lot to account for, and I think this platform has the ability, as we've seen, to clear 90 horsepower pretty easily. And I think with some internal motor work, we can clear 100 horsepower and still have a very reliable motorcycle. Now, the biggest thing of this first ride review, by far, is the aerodynamics and the ergonomic difference from the 8R to the 8S, or from the 8S to the 8R, however way you want to split it. And there's only one true way to test aerodynamics with your seat dyno, right? And that's by taking it on the highway. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to take it on the highway. I do very distinctly remember, and I know all too well, coming from an MT-07, that taking a naked bike on the highway is for the brave and for people who, you know, aren't really afraid. You will be fighting the wind quite a bit, and fighting yourself, carrying your body weight left to right, making sure that you're not fighting the wind laterally, but also side to side, or forward and back. So there's a lot to account for. We are taking it on the highway now, where we will test this. And see where we stand. Yes. Major improvement over the 8S, as I expected, with the introduction of these fairings and the windscreen. I'm sitting straight up right now. I don't find myself battling the wind going into it, and the wind gusts seem minimized. It is a fairly windy day today. We are seeing some overcasts and such, so I think it's a perfect day to test that theory. And let's go ahead and do a full tuck and see just how quiet it gets with the stock windscreen. That is very, very nice. A huge improvement from the 8S. I think once companies release windscreens for this, we're going to see an even better result. I do know that after speaking with the guys and gals over at Zero Gravity Racing, they are working with a race team to develop windscreens for this bike. I'm excited to see what they release. It's only up from here. This is a very, very solid platform. We're now going to go ahead and head back to the shop to give my final thoughts and impressions. If you haven't already, be sure to hit that subscribe button. Check out our dyno video. We just put out a dyno video on this bike with the stock horsepower readings where Bart broke it down while giving a little bit of insider info on this platform and what we're hoping to do with it. And we will be putting out more performance related videos as the year goes on and as we continue working on this platform. But for now, I'm going to go ahead and head back to the shop and give you our final thoughts. So we'll see you there.
All right, well, there you have it. We are back at the shop. And as much as I really enjoyed this Suzuki GSX-8R and riding it for the first time, I do have to admit, I feel like I've done this before. And I think that it's because at its core, as I've mentioned, this is the same exact platform and the same bike as the Suzuki GSX-8S, which we have already had and did a first ride review on last year. But I think the big value of this bike is finding out where it fits in the market. Coming in at under $2,000 cheaper than the RS660 and only $200 more expensive than the R7, the value really comes in what is packaged into this machine. Again, you're coming out of the box with some riding modes, a stock quick shifter, auto blipper. Those things alone are parts that you would have to purchase if you were interested in them and would have to add on to your R7. That is an additional cost, additional workload. So it really just depends on what you're looking for. I think the biggest takeaway you should have after watching this is making that conscious decision to go down to your local dealership and testing out some other bikes. Very often in the motorcycle industry and the culture, we get stuck behind certain logos and the beliefs behind those brands, and it tends to push us away from other brands. As I've mentioned in the GSX-8S first ride review, I was not a Suzuki fanboy or a believer. I thought they were fairly stale in their motorcycle offerings. Although they offer well-rounded products, I just felt like they were kind of boring and falling behind comparative to some of the other brands like Yamaha and Kawi. However, this platform has reignited that fire, and I have taken back my words. Suzuki really did offer a well-rounded machine here, something unique and something better than what the competition has been able to offer over the past several years. So if you like this video, if you found it useful, be sure to give us a thumbs up, hit that subscribe button, leave comments, let me know what you think. Are you a GSX-8S owner? Are you a GSX-8R hopeful owner? Are you an owner of an RS660 or an R7 looking at this machine? Let us know what you ride, where you're checking in from. We'd love to hear from you all. If you're interested in any of these products for the GSX-8R or the 8S or any other bike that may be in your garage, be sure to stop by our website, tstindustries.com. You can watch our GSX-8S first ride review in the link down below in this description. If you haven't already, stop by our social media pages, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all username TST Industries. And be sure to stop by our website. We got a bunch of cool new merch, some new hats, new shirt offerings. We got bike mats, garage banners, you name it, we have it. As always, this has been Mark in the TST Garage. Huge shout out to DeLand Motorsports and Outdoors in DeLand, Florida. And a big thank you to Suzuki for offering something new and invigorating in the industry. We will catch you all next time. Ride safe.